Time for the Pucking Around podcast. Puck around and find out.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey, everybody, come in and sit down for our podcast, Pucking Around. We're talking hockey, Habs, Bruins, and Flyers. Give us a listen and see what transpires. We're all a little nervous. Will it be a good show? Sit back and relax. Here's what you need to know. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Rick. This is my YouTube channel. I do all kinds of shit. Over there you got the Boston Three. They love the Habs, the Bruins, and the Flyers, you see. We've also got a segment with Pete the Fifth. If I were you, I wouldn't miss it, man. Pete gets pissed. We'll talk about Habs hockey, Bruins, Flyers, NHL. We'll have a prospect report, a college roundup as well. So check out our show, see what we're all about. It's the Pucking Around podcast. Puck around and find out. Hey, everybody. I'm Rick. Welcome in. So listen, my team, the Montreal Canadiens, had a great week, going 3-1 and finding themselves in 8th place in the league. Lofty heights for Montreal. Unfortunately, it's hard to fully enjoy it all. And that's with the news coming out of England, where a young man lost his life in a professional hockey game in the EIHL, an incident that may end in a murder charge. Murder on the ice, man. More craziness in a crazy world. We're going to talk about this tonight a little later on. So we'll try, though, tonight for the rest of the show to lighten the mood a bit for you all as we celebrate Halloween. We're going to talk about our teams and the NHL for last week and for a bit of a look ahead to next week. So let's not waste any time. Let's get started. I'm going to introduce you to the rest of the crew here. All right. So my regular co-host, you all know him? Matt Norton, right up there. Next to him, over there, Philadelphia Flyer fan and our friend, Alex Fournette.
And good evening, everybody. I love my ears.
On the bottom, because we keep him for last because he's a Bruins fan. You know, down there is Cam Sikarzik.
Let's go. Let's go there, boys.
Let's go there, boys. All right. Now you got to guess what each of us is. All right, so listen, we're going to talk about, we're going to take a look at last week and the games last week. So I'm going to start it off because, it's 100% pure Canadian beef here and take off, so I'm going to start it off. And, I don't have a script for that. Montreal went 3-1 last week. It was a great week for a team that didn't expect that much. They started off 5-2-1. An overtime and a shootout win to end the week. I wasn't expecting such a good week. They look really good. We're still suffering from some injuries, but I think these guys are they're banding together really and playing for each other. And you can really see it on the ice. This team is going to be really great that way. These guys really like each other. I think there's no doubt about that. And I think part of this good week is due to that. I felt the refs were horrible on us this week, and I'm not crying, but the refs were horrible, and they banded together, and it kind of didn't affect their overall game. So this was a good week for Montreal. What do you think, Matt? You think that you agree with me? It was a pretty good week for Montreal.
Yeah, no, all things considered, it was a good week. It was a fun week, and it was really good to see the boys battle back twice. 2 games in a row, down by 2 in the third, and came back and won the game. I can't remember the last time, we really kind of saw that, right, on a consistent basis where they had that kind of mentality of we're not going to give up. We're not going to be just pushed over. We're going to keep playing. We're going to keep fighting, and we'll see what happens.
We saw that in points, I think, last season. I think there were points last season where they were on like a good streak, and that's why they were winning. They were winning because of that kind of thing. They didn't give up. They fought for each other. They played for each other. And you can see that there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
There's a lot of, I'm interested what you guys think about that. And I don't know how much you follow. I want to call him Igor Slavkovsky. Slavkovsky had, I would think, probably about the same week as, he didn't have an overly great week or whatever. A lot of people, again, calling for him to go to Laval. curious. Actually, I'm curious more of what you guys know, Cam and is that Ephraim? Ephraim the Rabbit.
Ephraim the Rabbit.
Ephraim. Sorry, Ephraim. I see the E, and I think it's for online stuff. I'm curious what you guys know about the situation. What do you guys think about Slavkovsky? Do you think Montreal's making a mistake and they should put him in the AHL?
Not at this stage. I mean, he seems like he's fitting well with that second line. Obviously, the loss of Kirby Dach has been pretty difficult for you guys, but it doesn't look like they've missed that much of a beat thus far. I do wonder if Montreal's going to be able to keep the same pace they've been going with, because it looks like a lot of it has just been more opportunists and being able to convert on the opportunities they have. One thing that's really stood out for them is their goaltending has been solid, rock solid. But for me, I think Slav should stay. He's been solid. He's produced at a legitimate level. Why bring him down and play him at a level he shouldn't be at? I think with the loss of Dach, he should still be there.
Cam.
Yeah. I really don't watch much of the Canadians, and I'm pretty sure, as you could guess, to why. But to piggyback on what Alex was saying, I think it is mainly attributed to the loss of Dach why you're seeing a dip in quality in Slav. But I think he needs to be given that opportunity to be able to be better. So I think you keep him around for a little while longer, and then if he does need more development, then give him that development. I'm going to disagree with Alex on the goaltending. I still think you guys have some question marks there. I think they've bailed you out, but I don't think their goaltending is sustainable. I think it's going to need to be an all-around team effort if they're going to. Which kind of leads me to my question for you guys. They currently hold a playoff spot. Is that sustainable? And do you think the management sees it? And, come November, do you think they start evaluating on maybe bringing in some players at the deadline that could help them maybe make a playoff push?
No.
Nope.
I don't think it's sustainable, and I don't think they do anything different than – they're not bringing in outside talent.
No, it wouldn't
If anything,
make sense.
Promote from down in the minors, but, yeah, it's not sustainable, and they're not bringing in any free agents or trading. I don't think so.
No, and then this year it's supposed to be another development year, so I don't think, I just don't think management's going to really tinker with that. I think
Plus, our depth is good. Our depth is much better, so
absolutely.
there's depth to draw from down on the farm.
Absolutely, as long as it's not Joshua Waugh, and they've already come out and said they're not calling him up, which is very good because I want him in Laval this whole season.
Yeah. When I look at what Montreal, I kind of agree there. I don't know if this is sustainable. One of the things that I notice is, like I brought up, is their opportunities. They've really been able to convert. From J Fresh Hockey, the Twitter account, the Montreal Canadiens are currently tied for first in goals above expected at 14.7, which is 14.7 goals more than they should have got, which really just comes out to show they've been burying their chances, but living and dying on that style of play is going to be very difficult. But at the same time, Jake Allen has been one of those individuals that have been making more saves compared to what he should be making. So that's where I think their goaltending has played well. I agree, though, when it comes to what Cam said. I do think that it's going to be very difficult to sustain.
Yeah.
But it really just comes down to the end of the day. That team as a whole is going to have to step it up. But this kind of reminds me of the type of start that the Flyers had last year. They ran off of a very hot goaltender from Carter Hart. We started 7-2-2 last year, and then the wheels kind of fell off and we lost 10 straight. So not saying Montreal is going to lose 10 in a row, but it really just comes down to it's going to need to be a group effort to concede that sustainability.
Yeah, and I think, Jake Allen, you said about the goals above average there. He's got over 6 goals saved above average. So he's got a big piece of that number.
Mm-hmm.
But again, is that going to be sustainable? I don't know. But one thing interesting tonight, Jake Allen's been great. Monty's in nets tonight. So they didn't change. They're not making Jake Allen number one goalie yet. Are you surprised by that, Matt, at all?
I mean, Allen's played what, 3 straight now? Well, it would have been 3 straight or 2 straight.
I'm not sure. No, I don't think so.
I thought he was in net both games. The Jets game and the
no, Monty had one of those games. Monty had one of the 2 of the wins. The overtime win. I think that was Monty.
Oh, okay. I don't remember, but yeah. I mean, look, they gotta give these other goalies playing time. Like I'm very interested to see when Primo plays again because even though we did get shellacked by the Devils, I thought he held his own pretty well. It wasn't kind of what we expected from Primo in a sense of, before that, his record in the NHL wasn't good. But I thought he performed pretty admirably. So I'm interested to see when they play him again and what they end up doing. Who ends up being the guy that gets moved, because they have to move somebody.
Because it's not a sustainable situation. 3 goalies. Apparently, all 3 goalies possibly available in a trade if they can move. That's what I read, but I don't know the truth of that. Let's move on to the Flyers. Alex, how did your team do?
Not as good of a week as last week. We went 1-2. 2 out of the 3 games, I think they played well. Like everyone, we were part of that frozen frenzy thing. But of course, we got the very last game at 11 o'clock. So I'm going to be honest with you. I did not see the large majority of it. I had this thing called work in the morning, unfortunately. But after checking in, studying a little bit how they played from that night, I don't think they played all that bad. They did lose the game 3-2, but they held their 3-2, but they held their own with Vegas. They were right with them. They actually had at one point like a 19-7 shots advantage halfway through the game. They had a 2-1 lead in the first period. Noah Cates buried a rebound in the first to tie the game at 1 after Vegas got an early one. And then Cam Atkinson got a weird goal where he just put a shot off the backhand just to put it against the boards. One off the blocker of, I think it was Thompson, who their goalie was, and it just trickled in. Back and forth hockey through the second period. Third period, Vegas got an absolutely disgusting goal. I can't even remember who it was, but Igor Zamula got put on an absolute bender and scored, tied the game at 2. Then after that, it was back and forth till the final 30 seconds where Shea Theodore sniped one through 3 bodies by Carter Hart. Vegas won that game 3-2. Flyers heading back home, beat the Wild 6-2 in a game that they completely dominated for 50 of the 60 minutes.
I saw a little bit of that.
First 2 periods was all Philadelphia. It was only 3-0 after 2, and I say only because it could have easily have been worse. They skated circles around them all game. Carter Hart played great for those first 2 periods. Bobby Brink got his first career goal, which is awesome to see. But in the beginning of the third period, the wheels kind of came off a little bit. Defensively, a lot of lapses, stuck in their own end. The Wild put up 2 goals in a little over a minute to quickly cut it to 3-2, but the team kind of stayed firm. Cam Atkinson forced a nice turnover on the blue line, kicked the pass off to Owen Tippett, who buried his first goal of the year on a breakaway. That was pretty much it from there. The Flyers broke it open, and Wild kind of just packed it in at that point. Flyers ended up potting 2 more later in the game. And then the Ducks game happened. Samuel Ersson got his second start of the game, and this has been an issue for the Flyers. Both of his games he has played, he has not been good.
Yeah, that game was bad for you.
Yeah, the Ducks went up 4-0, and a game that the first period, the Flyers actually controlled pace of play despite the Ducks having a 2-0 lead. The second period, a very weird goal happened on a wraparound that it really didn't look like a distinctive goal, but they ended up crediting them anyway, and it kind of took the sails out of the Flyers as the Ducks got another one after that. They got 2 quick ones from TK and Atkinson, but the Ducks, every time the Flyers answered with one, the Ducks would get one right back. They ended up losing the game 7-4. Positives out of the week was it was good to see Bobby Brink get on the board. He scored 2 this week. Flyers, big rookie. They ended up getting some Cam Atkinson continued his hot start. Travis Konecny has 8 goals in the first games. He has been on.
And I have him. I think I have him in the fantasy pool. So
you must be loving it because he's been on an absolute surge. Probably waiting for that left wing eligibility. But him, Atkinson, and Farabee have been the primary goal scorers so far. But
yeah, you guys need secondary scoring.
Yes, that has definitely been the issue so far. It's been mainly 3 guys doing all the scoring. Brink did get 2 in that Wild game. Tippett finally got on the board. Cates has 1. But yeah, like you said, it really has just been mainly 3 guys doing the majority of the scoring. But their backup goaltending has been an issue. Like Samuel Ersson just looked lost out of place. At one point, he was 15 for 22 in net. That's something you see on a video game. Not good at all.
And goaltending almost always been an issue for your team.
It really has. And, I'm not too worried in the long term about Ersson, but I will say if this happens for another game or 2, I would not be against sending him back down to the AHL to season him so he can get consistent games, find his flow again.
Who else you guys got?
Well, the Flyers, like Montreal, is running a 3-goalie system right now.
Oh, okay.
But obviously Carter Hart, Samuel Ersson, and they also blanking on the guy's name. They have one other goalie up, and I'm blanking on his name. Felix Sandstrom. That's who it was.
Oh yeah. Okay.
He's only dressed though once this entire season, so
Yeah.
that'd be kind of throwing him into the fire. I would like them if they're going to
good.
send Urson down to get Felix a couple games almost instantly, so he can find his groove again.
Canadians have a goalie available.
We're not too worried about goaltending as a whole, but right now it would be more the fact that if this continues with Urson, and I'm not ready to pull the plug on him being the backup goalie yet for this season, but if this continues, I would not be against sending him down to the AHL.
All right, before we get to Cam, I did want to say something. I just got to give me a minute. Can't do this without saying Caden Gooley. Was he fantastic coming back, Matt?
So good.
And you
so,
guys,
so
want to chime
good.
in if you saw it.
I've said it. I think in terms of defensive skill, I think he's our best defender. I do.
Without a doubt. And I don't Matheson, I think, is in tonight, by the way. If anybody's no one's gonna see that before the game. Cam, how'd your team do?
It's pretty obvious.
Bruins. Boo. Oh, sorry.
Oh well, that's okay. How does 8th place feel? Anyway, well, you guys have a playoff spot, so that's fine. The Bruins continue to impress. They continue to show that they belong there. That one game where I wasn't really surprised that we took the OTL was Anaheim. They played us hard the last time. We played them on that last Sunday. And so I kind of expected a very hard-fought game for them out of there. So I'll take the OTL. Still a positive record out of that week, and the kid Matt Potra continues to impress, in my opinion. No, oh yeah, that too. His name's Patra, right? I'm never gonna get that. I'm never gonna get that right.
I just had to bug you. I'm sorry. I interrupted.
Yeah. I don't know. I was at a Northeastern game on Saturday, and I could not pronounce this kid's. I saw a whole bunch of letters. It was like looking at my name, and I said, "All right, I'm going to need the announcer to help me out there." And when he said it, it made no sense. So, I guess I'll take what I can get. But yeah, there really wasn't much. I think that happened in Bruins that wasn't expected. I expected the Detroit win. After that road trip. The OTL was also expected because of that road trip, long.
But in that way, though, and blowing the game with under a minute left.
Yeah, after a 4-game road trip, all the way out in California, then come back to Chicago, there's still a time change, only a day in between there to get reacclimated to this environment, and especially with the way Anaheim played us at the end of that road trip. It's not a surprise.
Bruins look gassed. I will agree with Cam there. They definitely look gassed.
You weren't surprised Chicago beat them?
But no, Chicago won.
Anaheim
beat us. Yeah.
No, didn't. Oh,
No,
was
the Bruins
Vegas.
beat Chicago.
Chicago beat Vegas. I'm sorry, but I do want to ask you: are you surprised they haven't lost a game yet in regulation?
Bruins? No.
Yeah.
No. The schedule maker has been easy on them. They faced some borderline playoff teams and majority not playoff teams in my opinion. So I don't think it's much of a surprise. Right, yeah, and plus I've said it in the first podcast and in every episode since that defense hasn't changed. The goalie tandem hasn't changed. What does need to help change for the better is the forwards playing some more defense and being a little bit more aggressive in their own zone. And hopefully in Florida we see that tonight.
I have Allmark in my fantasy pool. I've got 3 goalies. He's the only one that's about over 900 on the save percentage. So I'm really glad I took him.
Good. You made a smart choice there.
Great for Carter Hart.
No, I'm all set. We don't need a goalie situation.
No, I was talking to Rick for his fantasy team. I want to keep Carter Hart on our team as a whole.
Yeah.
I don't know who's got Carter Hart. I don't.
Yeah. But just to kind of segue us into our futures, for the week ahead, I'm going to count the Florida game as part of this weekend, the week ahead. So, I think the overall record, I'm not going to get too granular with it, but I think we go the best case, 1-1-1, worst case 0-2-1. We're playing Toronto, Detroit, Florida. Those are really tough teams. So, I don't think we lose all of them, but I definitely see a lot of challenges there.
I have trouble saying that about Toronto. I kind of like the Fonz trying to say he was wrong. Toronto's they're not a tough
You can do
team.
it, Rick. We believe in you.
No, but it's the offensive aspect. I think Bruins can get caught in their
True.
own end, and
Okay,
that's why
I'll
I
give you
think
that.
1-1.
I'll give you that.
What about Montreal, Rick?
Well, like you said, today we're playing tonight. We got Vegas tonight. I don't know what to expect there. Vegas started out with 3 4-1 wins in their season. And then their last, I think 4 to their last 5 games, they've only won by a goal. And then they had a game where they won by 2, I think, and empty net goal. So I don't know what team, I don't know. Montreal's playing well right now. I'm hoping they can pull off an upset tonight. I really am. I legitimately am hoping Montreal pulls off an upset tonight. I'm not going to count on it, but I think they got a shot. So that's tonight. Then Thursday, playing Arizona.
Should be a win.
You know what, though? We're going to go in there and say, yeah, it should be a win. Arizona's going to beat us. Just because they're going to – I have a feeling that's what's going to happen. So I kind of feel they really got a legitimate shot to beat Vegas tonight. So I'm going to call that a win for me. Just be bold. I think they're going to lose against Arizona. And then we got St. Louis on Saturday. And I just think that's going to be a win because the last couple of times I remember the games against St. Louis, we played really well. Jake Allen, former Blue. I'm sure he'll be in nets for that. It doesn't make sense not to. Yes, I see. So I figure, yeah, we're going to go 2-1 this week. And continued good play from Gooley. Continued good play from the big guy, the smallest guy on the team there, Cole Caulfield, who a question for all you. Is Montreal making it too obvious, or should they be doing this with a guy that's probably their best player on the team? Basically trying to feed him the puck all the time, especially in overtime. Is that too obvious and not the right thing to do?
Best players.
Is that what
That's
you
what
should
3-on-3 is about.
No, but just even during the game, isn't that what you should be doing with your big gun?
Yeah. The guy with the shot that he has, absolutely.
Especially in 3-on-3 hockey.
No, you become too predictable. I mean, let's look at it from the Bruins' perspective. When they kept trying to feed Pasternak the puck on the power play, it gets predictable. You gotta be able to allow other people to score. You gotta build other players' confidence as well.
True.
So I think the game of hockey is just much more than giving the puck to the best player on the ice. It's too predictable. Players are smarter than that. They read that. They'll build on that. And that's how you end up losing games, is just by feeding the same player the puck.
Couldn't you also say that if they're smart, they get everyone to think that's where they're going, and yet somehow work it and get another guy that gets a guy open? Don't you think? Apparently, he's drawing 2 and 3 guys to him all the time.
I can agree with Cam's point from a certain perspective. If 5-on-5, absolutely. When it comes to 3-on-3 overtime, I'm all about getting the puck on the guys who can score the most. You have a lot of open ice. And it's not like regular 5-on-5 hockey. It's the ability to transition. I mean, find the open spaces. You see guys just skate around for 30, 40 seconds in a game like that. You want to get your scorers out there. You want to get your best players to get the opportunity to score. In a 5-on-5, then yes, absolutely. You want to get your team involved.
That's the typical strategy of 3v3, though.
Yeah,
you want your scorers out there, but in typical game fashion.
And I agree there. 5-on-5 hockey, yes, it should be cycling the puck, find the open guy, don't force feed your best players, let it happen naturally. 3v3, feed the open guy. I mean, feed your scorers. You have a lot of open ice to generate, and take it from there based off a play-by-play perspective.
Yeah, I agree.
Matt, you were quiet. What's saying, Matt?
Well, no, look, I think if anytime he's open, I think they're going to get it to him. I mean, we've seen it too, even on the power play, right? They're getting him the puck. The problem is they're putting too much oomph on the pass, and he can't. It's too quick for him to one time it. But no, I mean, but we've also seen, the guys like even Suzuki, now that he's kind of started to find his game, be able to find other guys like that pass to Monahan the other night. So. I think it as often as they can, they'll probably try to get Caulfield involved, but they have been able to get everyone else involved. So
I think they have, yeah. But I think I think with a guy like Caulfield who literally wants the puck on his stick, wants to be in those pressure situations and score the big game-winning goal, I don't think you got much choice. You got to kind of feed him, and hopefully he draws guys to him to leave somebody else open. So as long as this big gun isn't afraid to pass the puck, which Caulfield is not afraid to do, I think it works kind of, you know?
Yeah, absolutely it does.
At least it's working right now. I don't know if it's something that can work every single game. Yes, there'll be times when it works, times when it doesn't, but it seems to be working right now anyway.
I mean, yeah, when you have all your elite scorers on the ice, that's typically how it's going to work. But in terms of like NHL futures, though, you know, you guys think you're going 2-1. I'm curious as to what Alex thinks his roller coaster of a team is going to do.
Well, see, I'm switching the wins with Rick though. I got us beating Arizona and St. Louis, losing tonight. Maybe even in overtime.
We have 4 games this week. Playing Carolina tonight, have a home and home at Buffalo, and end the week at home against the Kings. I see us 2-1-1 this week. I'm going to say we lose tonight to Carolina, sweep the home and home at Buffalo, and then lose in overtime to the Kings.
So what's that record?
2-1-1.
How many goals is KK going to get against you? Looking at me. He's playing well. He's playing freaking well.
1 empty netter just to be that guy. I think Travis Konechny pots another 3 goals this week and jumps to 11.
That's nice.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina though, they're starting to figure it out. I mean, you know, just to talk about the league.
That's why I put this as a loss.
Yeah, just to talk about the league, you know, in general, especially with Carolina, they look like they're starting to figure it out. You know, their defense. I think they just lost Brady Shea too.
Really?
Did they not?
I think you might be right. They had a slow start a bit, Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got hit with the injury, but bad.
But that's a good team. If they're not heavily injured, they're going to figure it out. They're not going to be. You can't.
They've won their last 2 games going into tonight. I know that they started 3-4. They had 2. They beat San Jose. Who the hell hasn't beaten San Jose?
Everybody.
And yeah, well, you want to talk about a mess. But I can't remember who their other one was against. But I know they've won back-to-back games heading into this game tonight. But yeah, that's a team I feel like they're going to start ramping it. I could very easily see Carolina go on a little bit of a run and crack off like 9 of 11 or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
With that decor is still damn loaded.
Yeah, you got to figure they're not. I can't see. I hate them. I don't like that team. But I mean, you can't see them being a sucky team all year.
You know what's weird? I never had any real animosity against Carolina. I look at our division, and there's really 2 teams that I look at that I don't really hate, and that would be the Hurricanes and Islanders. Every other team in that division I have some level of hatred for, but that Carolina team, I look at the way they're just built and how that defensive structure has been made by Brindamore, and it's something I want my team to be built around. It's a way that they trap teams consistently. They don't let teams get high-quality bids. They keep them on the outside of the boards. They check hard. They force turnovers. I look at that, and it's like that's how you want to build a team to have long-term success.
Yeah, it's a good team, and it's well coached, but we had history. Canadians.
Oh, I know. Coach Yemi is pretty obvious. And then
they're starting to even out. They're starting to even out, Alex, too. I think, remember, a couple of weeks ago, I had mentioned they were worst in the league in terms of goals against per game at 5 goals against per game. They're now 3.8.
Were they?
Yeah, they draw.
Well, you're right. It was like a couple of weeks ago.
But now they're starting to even out. So now their goals for per game is about 3.67, and their goals against per game is about 3.89. So not great, but you're starting to see that improvement, and especially over a week, you know, it's kind of big. You know what I mean? 5 goals against per game is terrible.
Yeah.
Alex, you know, Matt, actually, do you have any thoughts on how Carolina is kind of turning it around aside from what everyone else has kind of said?
They're getting their big guns back from injury, right? I mean, they just got Aho back. I think Anderson is back, if not soon. So, you know, having those guys finally come back from injuries has been a huge help. You know, I think they were the most injured team, I think, for a week or so. They got hit with the injury bug pretty bad, but you know, like having those guys finally come back, it has worked wonders. And I kind of expected that to happen. Because they did get off to a slow start, but I attributed that to just injuries and the guys that did get hurt. So
Speaking of
moving
injuries,
forward, I think they'll be fine as long as, again, they stay healthy. And then that's the case with any team in the league.
speaking of injuries, Ottawa Senators defenseman Thomas Chabot, broken hand, out 6 to 8 weeks. How bad do you think that affects Ottawa?
Tremendously.
Trickle down effect.
Oh, yeah.
Don't you
Tremendously.
think? So
That's-
like thinking that they're going to be like a team that's going to make a jump, that might change everything, right?
Yeah, there's no question about it. I think they're 4-4 right now. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, they're 4-4, and so I think losing a player like Thomas Chabot, I think your number one offensive defenseman, because I think that's what they're going to classify him as.
Pretty much, he must be. He's definitely
He's a
offensive
key
defenseman.
piece. And Chikrin's done well there, so I don't know, but in terms of the strength of the Atlantic Division, they're going to struggle quite a bit. Trying to compete with the rest of that division.
Yeah, that's a player. It's tough to lose a guy like that. I
Yeah.
mean, any team loses a player like that, they're gonna struggle.
We were
a little
just
bit.
talking about last week about how solid their top D pairing had been too. Losing a guy like Chabot is such a long-term trickle effect because it's going to have an effect on the way they play offense too, because they're not going to be able to really be as aggressive knowing that they don't have both of their anchors back there to protect them. God forbid something doesn't go well.
Yeah.
So now they may be a little more lax offensively. They may not want to take as many chances with that top six. You see guys like Stützle and Giroux and Tkachuk and Batherson all have these good starts. Could this have issues with them potentially getting out of their own end consistently and spending as much time on the offensive end? I think Ottawa definitely could feel that's going to be a major trickle-down effect, I have to say.
And players' points totals, too, because this is an offensive defenseman. This is a guy feeding your forwards. That's going to have a big effect. I had him before, I think last year in the fantasy. He puts up points.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about that. I apologize. It's my dog barking because there's a dog
He wants
barking.
to be part of the show, that's all.
Yeah, she's scared by the ghosts outside because, it's Halloween. Okay, Ray, enough.
I mentioned the strength of the Atlantic Division, and I kind of wanted to bring this
Right.
up. And Alex, you touched upon some of the other teams in the Metro Division. How does everyone feel about where the strengths of these divisions lie? Because personally, I think there's a huge gap where you're starting to see the Atlantic pull away as an extremely dominant division.
Very deep division, too.
Oh, my God, yeah.
And I question is to you guys, because there's no question in any of our minds that the Atlantic is the top division in the league. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They may not have the best team in hockey present in there. For me personally, I think that's either Carolina or Colorado or VGK, one of those three. But looking at the rest of the divisions, how do you guys feel the NHL has kind of distributed those teams? Or how do you feel like the distribution of talent is on these divisions?
So I think, as you stated, the Atlantic is definitely the best division. Every single team in that division is 8 points already. Like that's pretty impressive. Every team except Buffalo is at least 500 or better. Then I look at the Metropolitan. You have a few teams like Philadelphia surprising early. The Islanders are hanging in there.
New Jersey.
New Jersey's being New Jersey. We know they're going to be a friggin' tank. That team's just
Alex's second favorite team. No, I'm
I hate the Devils.
I'm just kidding.
Let's put a clarity on that right now. One team that has surprised me, who I actually picked to miss the playoffs this year, is the New York Rangers. That team, they have been scoring consistently. They've been getting production from all four of their lines. Igor is still Igor. And their defense, which I thought was going to have have issues with that second and third pairing, has actually been pretty stable. Adam Fox is Adam Fox. He's one of the best defensemen in the league, in my opinion. Then you look at a guy like Jakob Trouba, who has got a bit of a reputation for being kind of a dirty player, but he plays it with a very physical edge. He knows how to get under the opposition's skin. And that Rangers team has gone out west, has just been consistently winning. I think they beat the Oilers already. They beat Vancouver, if I remember correctly. They're 6-2 right now. That team has been a team that I've been watching over the last 6 or 7 days that has really opened my eyes. Like, hey, this team might be better than I first thought.
Yeah, I didn't think they were going to have a great season. And yeah, I agree.
I didn't think they would. I mean, it's still early. We're only 2.5, 3 weeks in. So a lot can change from now to April. Then you look at the Pacific, and that, in my opinion, is by far
That's
worst.
the worst division in hockey.
Not only the San Jose Sharks been an anchor, the Edmonton Oilers just got their second win in the Heritage Classic.
Calgary's
By
been
the way,
bad.
did anyone even know that event was happening until a few days ago?
Nope. No, the NHL was really not prominent, I think, in advertising that.
Because they knew that both teams playing in it would poop.
They didn't even push it. They didn't even talk about it.
Why aren't you advertising that?
Yeah, I don't know.
And to add more to the Pacific Division, because I couldn't agree with more, and I'm pretty sure Rick and Matt will agree that there's only 4 teams that have, I think a 500 or better record, and the rest of them are 2-5, or if you're the San Jose Sharks, 0-8-1. So yeah, I look at that division, I just say that there's no competition in there.
There really isn't,
Something
right? I
wrong
mean,
there.
it's Vegas, and I'd throw LA, and I'd throw. I mean, even Seattle is okay, but it's really Vegas, LA, and
Whenever Edmonton gets going,
Talent traded out, and maybe free agents signed out of there. Is that, you think, what happened?
The Pacific's always been pretty weak, to be totally honest.
I agree with you.
I mean, for the last few years, it's been quite weak.
True.
That division's pretty much been wrapped up by about December, honestly, about Christmas time every year.
Yeah.
The past 2 seasons.
To Matt's point, the top 4 teams in the Pacific Division right now are Vegas, Vancouver, Los Angeles, and Anaheim.
Yeah. See, Anaheim and Vancouver, I can't see being sustainable there, but you never know, right?
Vancouver's actually played pretty decent hockey. I got to give them that.
Yeah. And oftentimes, Rick, sometimes you just need to beat the teams in your division that are ahead of you. That's how you get into the playoffs, because with the way the format works, it's not a
I get it.
basis. Yeah.
I get it, but I mean, that's 2 teams. Anybody would have had them in the playoffs going into this season? No.
I didn't have Anaheim making the playoffs. Maybe in 2 years.
I mean, anybody.
Yeah.
Like
Vancouver,
anywhere.
yeah, Vancouver's was a hot mess last year, and I'm surprised they're still not a hot mess.
They probably are, and the shit's gonna hit the fan at some point, and it's probably what's gonna happen there. There was something you wanted to say something about the Penguins. I remember. You were saying something to us earlier.
I'm definitely concerned with them. In terms of their record, they're, I think, 3-4. I'm just going to correct myself pretty quickly if I can. I'm sorry, they're 3-5. And I'm a little surprised. And, I know they're the oldest team in hockey, and I know we're not going to be able to debate that.
Are they the oldest?
They are. Yeah.
Washington, not? Okay.
And I think let's take a moment to kind of talk about them for a second. Yes, they're the oldest team, barring age. Let's just put age aside for a moment, and let's just recognize the talent that they have on the team. Crosby's still an elite scorer. He's still an elite center. Malkin, you love him, hate him, however you feel about him, still an elite scorer, still a good center. Jeff Carter, and they have
Jeff Carter's still playing hockey.
Not good anymore. That guy fell off a cliff.
But he's still a good depth center.
There is nothing good about Jeff Carter anymore. He is slow. He can't play. The whole Penguins fan base wants.
I didn't realize how slow Malkin got too. I saw him the other night. A highlight of him going in on a breakaway, and he looked like he was skating in place.
I think he's battling some type of injury.
He's uglier than ever, too, Malkin.
When it comes to the Penguins, they've always been built on that top 6 with Malkin, Crosby, Russ, Getzel. He's back. Who knows? He may have came back prematurely because he was supposed to be out a little bit longer than this.
That's what I thought too.
Back for game 1, but the big thing is Erik Karlsson the fit that the Penguins thought he was going to be? They invested a lot in this guy. They're still paying $10 million a year on that contract, I think, for the next 3 years. If this does not work out, this is going to be a detriment to their long-term rebuild for a long time, just being stuck with all these anchor contracts. Like, you have a guy like that with Chris Letang already. I still don't get the point of why they brought him in. I reiterated this a few weeks ago, but they should have got another hard-nosed bruising defenseman like Brian Dumoulin.
Yeah. Can I say, surprise, it didn't work out with Karlsson. I said this, it wouldn't work out. So my prediction was so far.
He needs to be the guy. If he's going to be on a team, he needs to be the guy. That's why he was so successful in San Jose. They said, go do something. And so he went out and he did it. And Alex, I just want to go back to your point on Jeff Carter, because I think your evaluation of him is a little unfair, and he may be a -1, but he is 62.5% in the faceoff dot.
That's about all he's good for, though, because
But
he's slow.
that's-
He's always in the wrong spot defensively.
But
He
that's
turns
how
the
you
puck
win
over
games.
constantly.
That's how
Is
you
he
can win
fourth line
games.
though? Is he fourth line? He must be a fourth line center for them,
He's
right?
he's a bottom six guy. He's
that's not
definitely
too
in the
bad.
like whole 18 of his career. He's
No, but I
pretty
mean,
much the
okay.
whipping boy in the Pittsburgh Penguins right
But
now.
for a fourth line center, one thing you kind of really want is that they're good in the faceoff circle.
No, he's been solid in the circle, but that's
yeah.
about all he's produced. He's a turnover machine who's constantly out of position. That's been a big issue for him. The Penguins' bottom six has been a barren wasteland this entire year. You want to talk about a team getting no secondary scoring. I think that bottom six has got
because they
2
have
goals.
Dubas running the show, and Dubas spends too much money elsewhere and doesn't have enough money to fill out a team. That's his
The
problem.
only thing I give Dubas is he got rid of a lot of the bad contracts he had, but this has been a Ron Hextall issue. This was a lot worse than what Dubas did. Hextall planted the seeds for this team to be pushed back for a while. The Penguins are going to be, and I get it, they wanted to get a guy like Carlson to try to extend this window as long as possible. And, we're only 8 games into the season. The Penguins could still make a vault to near the top of the standings.
True.
But at the end of the day, it's not going to win you games in the playoffs. They don't have the structure defensively to be able to make a long-term run.
No, and I think the age is a factor too, because I just think with how young teams are now and how quick the game's played, especially if they do sneak into the playoffs,
they're going to be gassed by April
because of how old collectively that team is. I just don't think they're going to be able to keep up with teams.
Yeah.
I mean, I've even seen it the game against Chicago. They had a really hard time keeping up with the young skaters and the Blackhawks. I think that's going to be a theme probably all season with them.
I want to touch base on Tristan Jarry because I think there was an NHL analyst that said that don't be surprised if he's in the talks for the Vezina Trophy, and I started laughing. I said that team they're gonna leave him out to dry. He's maybe on a better team with some defense around him. He's a better goaltender, but he's not that guy that can bail you out.
I agree. I don't think Jari is a bad goalie by any standards, but like you just touched on, that D-core, especially the second and third pairing, is as a whole is not that good in their own
right. And you're not going to win.
You have 2 elite offensive defensemen. Yes, you can move the puck and facilitate it on the offensive end. The Pens' offensive analytic numbers have been fantastic this year, but you're not going to win every game 6-5 every night. I think the Pens will end up getting better as the year goes on, but that's not a team that's just going to have long-term sustained success with the way that defensive structure is.
Yeah, and I'm still just genuinely surprised with what they poured into it. Getting Riley Smith, he's still he's a former Cup champion. Erik Karlsson, yes, he's not the player he was in San Jose or Ottawa for that matter. I agree with you, Alex. There might be a piece where it's the GM. I think it's a piece where it's the coaching. Even though I love Mike Sullivan, I think he's a great coach. I just think there's a lot more going on with that team, and I'm starting to lean towards that. It is part of the age, but barring that, I just think that the team is just not built for success. That bottom six, like you alluded to, is putrid.
Awful.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I mean, that's my thought definitely on the Penguins. And my heart definitely goes out to the Penguins and family of Adam Johnson, who had tragically lost his life over the weekend.
Talking about my monologue.
Yeah, and it's definitely very sad, especially when you see a player so young. I mean, I know he was 28, 29, something along those lines. 29. Still, that's a young man.
Young man.
Yeah. So if you think of it that way,
that's a first.
Still playing really good hockey too, and I also think back to his days at Minnesota Duluth. I mean, you guys know I'm a big college hockey guy, and I watched him at Minnesota Duluth too, and he's just a good. He wasn't really that flashy, but he was just a solid, good hockey player.
Yeah, I didn't know too much about Adam Johnson's game. I know he did have a little bit of a stint with the Flyers AHL affiliate in the Phantoms. So my heart goes out to him and his family and loved ones. Like, that's such an unfortunate situation. Yeah. It really just goes to show, like, in the game of hockey, God forbid, anything can happen at any time. Like, these guys are out there at all times, putting their bodies on the line. and a freak accident like that.
Oh, wait. Let's not call it a freak accident necessarily. I take issue with that.
Leads into
That's going to
this.
send us into overtime because our first question in overtime, where we ask 5 questions and we all give answers, is this, and it's going to probably lead to a little more than what I'm asking here. In the wake of former Pens forward Adam Johnson's death after I wrote here a freak accident, but that was before I knew a little more about it. On the ice, where he was cut on, I think the back of the neck or the side. Anyway, I think the carotid artery got cut, and that was with a skate blade. Should all hockey leagues, including the NHL, put in place some sort of mandatory neck guard rule? Now, before we answer that question, since Alex brought up the freak accident, I had it here. I don't know where I want to go with this. This was not a freak accident. If you look at the replay, and it's not easy to look at. It's not, but it was out there on Twitter, and I said, well, let me take a look at it. And I did, and the surprise was that it was not a freak accident. The player was skating upward, and the player that cut him literally karate kicked him in the neck. I never seen anything like that before in my life. And that's what happened. So there's a bigger question there. I don't know what the question is, but I just had to say that it's not a freak accident, in my opinion. Let's answer my question. Sorry. Should there be a mandatory neck protection? Now, when I played last, I played old timers hockey in the 90s. Last time I played, it was just a few years after, maybe 4 or 5 years after Kurt Malarchuk. I think it was 89, got his throat cut. I think it was 89, something like that, 86. It wasn't that long after. So we all had to wear mandatory neck protection, or we could not get on the ice. They would not let you on the ice to play a game without that. So you know what? It's not that bad. I've worn it. It's not that bad. And they've gotten much more modern stuff. And I think that, yes, I think they should have to wear something around their neck.
I would like to follow up on that. And I agree 100%. I think it should become mandatory in the league. Let me start also to follow up on something. I actually haven't even seen the video yet because I really don't want
It's
to.
hard. It's really hard.
I've seen a few people post it, but I've taken it upon myself not to go watch that. The only thing I've seen is the after effect where they put the towel over his throat. So I'm gonna take your word for it, Rick, and say that it maybe was not a freak accident, especially if he karate kicked him. I hear there is going to be an investigation on this, but back to the main question. I agree. There should be some level of mandatory neck protection. This is not the first time this has happened. It was a Buffalo Sabres goalie. I think I remember.
It's Malarchuk. Richard Zednik. I watched that game live when Zednik got cut.
Got a lot more lucky than Johnson did, and he ended up thankfully having his life saved.
Yeah,
and it just goes to show if hit in the right spot, it could be catastrophic.
Has to be the amount of blood was the carotid artery. Had to.
Yeah, there's too many arteries. And you know what? I'm going to go a step further. I think there should be wrist protection too, because there's a lot of major arteries in your wrist too, and God forbid one of those gets slit.
Well, Vander Kane.
Yeah.
It was stepped on. Nothing. It was definitely that was a freak accident.
Yeah.
But 100%. I mean, especially with the new gauntlets, where they're much lower. In my day, when I was young, I mean, they came up to your elbow pretty much, right? But so you were protected there. Now they're down just at your wrist. So there's a lot of times where you would literally, when you're falling down on the whatever, your wrist is open to any skate blade.
God forbid. So I honestly. It doesn't just go to answer your question, though. It doesn't just go to the neck for me. I think any part that has any major artery that can be potentially exposed needs protection.
Well, in other words, should there be protection for the parts of the body that a skate blade can literally cause somebody to die?
Yes.
So that might be a better question. So I agree.
I'm gonna follow up after us because I know Matt has a huge passion about the protection of the player at all costs. And, you know what I mean? It is. And, these events are an exemplary, piece to that. When you see these things happen, it's terrible. It's tragic. Some people survive who are very fortunate. Others, it's there's no words to describe this. So my answer is yes, there should be something to protect these players. You know, anything can happen any given time. If you read the book, the first 5 seconds or something along those lines, I can't remember the exact title. It was literally about a Boston, I think it was a BU player. Matt, correct me if I'm
11
wrong.
seconds, yeah.
Yeah, the first 11 seconds of his college career, he got paralyzed.
I remember hearing about that.
And
Yes.
It's a good read. I have the book. It's a very, very good read.
And though it wasn't a fatality, it was still something eye-opening.
He was paralyzed for life, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so my short answer is, yeah, there should be some form of protection, just because these freak accidents, or whatever you would like to call them, Rick, I personally would like to believe in the good in people, that someone would not intentionally try to do something like that.
You have to watch it and see it. You'll agree with me.
I can't. I
don't. I get that. But if you ever did, you would not even hesitate to say this was deliberate.
Yeah. But yeah, there definitely should be something, because they're starting to become more frequent. So I think maybe the league just take a look at it.
And with banning of fighting and stuff like that going on, and in the professional leagues they're talking about it. That's that's going to happen more often if you take away fighting.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at there's been more accidents like that, through those things, and less injury through fighting. I think if you would kind of look at it, or less severe injury through fighting.
Right.
I'm sure people break a cheekbone or a nose.
Yeah, that happens. But
I'd rather that than my neck.
A skate blade across your skin is going to be an injury.
Yeah, I'd rather have a fight and break my nose than have someone skate over my finger, or God forbid anything worse. So with that, Matt, tell us about your passion.
Yeah, look, obviously this isn't the first time that a player's been cut with a skate, and unfortunately it's not the first time that a player's been killed because they were cut by a skate. I believe it was last year a high school hockey player was killed.
Yes,
because they got cut on the neck with the skate. Honestly, even though they don't happen often, I've always been a proponent of some sort of neck protection. Speaking from my family, my cousin Richard, he wears one to play hockey. He wouldn't be allowed to play hockey if he didn't wear one. And I think that, again, even though they don't happen often, because of the amount of damage and the catastrophic consequences that can come from these sort of injuries, I think they should be mandatory, regardless. And a lot of the modern neck protectors too are quite comfortable. I'm telling you, I know, again, like my cousin Richard, he doesn't have an issue, when he wears his. It's nice and comfortable. It doesn't restrict anything.
Yeah, 30 years ago, the one I wore, it was not a problem to wear it.
And look, I can speak for all of us when I say, I don't want to see someone else die on the ice because of an injury like that. It's preventable. And, I think if there is a way to prevent that, which there is, then yeah, I think it needs to be mandated throughout all levels of hockey, college, youth hockey up to the NHL. No excuses.
Yeah, you don't get on the ice if you're not wearing it.
I don't want to hear about anyone else dying because they got cut in the neck.
And for the wrist, we were talking about the wrist. They make these you can't cut material that you can't cut. How hard is that to slip that on your wrist? Right? How uncomfortable can that be? So there's no excuse that they're not already doing it. I don't get it.
Absolutely. And I know goalies typically do. I know it's not mandatory for goalies either, but I know a lot of goalies do because of what happened with
Malarchuk. They all wear that thing down here. That's because
a lot of them started wearing like the Kevlar type protection too.
Yeah,
so
I know, but that
plastic and they have.
It started out with that thing that would hang down there. That was directly because of Malarchuk.
Yep.
So they should do it here too.
I agree.
You don't need another player to die on the ice, accident or not an accident, because of that.
No, it would be honestly inexcusable, and I think it's irresponsible. on the part of the
The
these
NHLPA.
hockey leagues.
I want to say
and the PA.
it's really irresponsible of the NHLPA to not have pushed for this. No? Cricket.
Absolutely. I mean, especially after, I know we talked about Malarchuk, but I was watching the game on TV when Richard Zednik got cut in the throat. And that looked really, really bad. Luckily, he was able to get his glove off and pinch off the vessel that got
right
cut.
to the bench. He didn't hesitate.
Went right to the bench,
right to the bench.
The trainer was able to pinch it off, so they were able to sew it back together. But again, how many times a game do we see battles in the corner where a player goes down and a skate comes up just because they maybe go down and you kind of free. I almost find myself freezing for a second because I don't know where that skate's going, right? And so I think if some sort of neck protector, wrist protector is mandated, it obviously I think you'd still be nervous, but it takes away some of that worry. Well, all right, if a blade does somehow get up there, there's a layer of protection there. There's a Kevlar weave that's going to stop the blade from.
Right. You may get cut, but you won't get cut that deep. So even if it does cut through, it's nothing. It's worth it. And believe me, it's worth it.
Yeah. So let's transition to our next question. What else do we have?
Done with that? All right. We don't want to go into the deliberacy of that. Let's not.
Yeah, I feel like that's
investigation
a situation. Let's wait till
let the investigation bring that out. 100%. I'll agree with you there. All right, let's get on to something a little lighter. We've talked about this before, but for some reason, I had this again to talk about. How hypocritical is the NHL in suspending Sens unsigned forward Shane Pinto, and it's very important, unsigned. And I do, just side note, the other day, the NHL, I don't know, Sportsnet or TSN put up Shane Pinto, and they had Yoel Armia's picture. Just funny. So they suspended him for gambling on sports that were not hockey. He's an RFA, unsigned, and his suspension started with the first game of the season. How is his suspension? How is that possible that it starts to count down when he's unsigned? Is something fishy going on here?
No, I think it's because at any point in time they can sign him and he can play. And there is a point in time where all players, and I think it's in December, they must be signed. Otherwise, I don't think they can play. I think it's all UFAs and RFAs have to be. There is a time point where I think they need to be signed by.
Okay, but wait a second. I understand what you're saying. So then they'd sign him, and then his suspension would start to count down. But it's not happening. It's counting down now. If they sign him at game 20,
but I
he's
think
already served 20 games. How? He's not a signed player.
Cam's point is the fact that he's pretty much open to being signed at any given point. So that's why they're starting the suspension from game 1. Because if he doesn't get signed soon anyway, he's going to be missing the entire season.
Yeah, because it's not as if he's ineligible to play. It's not like
this is true. This is true. And I even heard something, and I don't know the validity of this, that because he got the suspension before he signed, he can't sign and will miss the whole season because his suspension will be over at a point when he can't sign anyway. Yeah, so I don't know the validity of that, but I heard that somewhere. But listen, he's not signed. He's not an NHL player officially. How can you can suspend him and that he can't sign? But that's not what happened. They suspended him for 41 games, and it's starting to count. And he's not an NHL player right now, officially, right? Or am I really?
Well, he is wrong? Because he is still part of the NHLPA. Like he's still considered an NHL player, and
the NHLPA doesn't play games.
I think
he's still part of the union because he's considered an NHL player.
How are games counting on his suspension when he's not?
I think it's because
available for games.
He's still an RFA.
He's out. Yeah,
he is eligible.
He's not eligible to play. He's not eligible to play their games right now. He's not. He's not signed.
Yes, if he were to sign, if he were to sign, but that doesn't make him ineligible. He has no long-term injury. He has nothing that puts him on IR. which makes him an eligible free agent to be able to play, which opens him
Yeah.
to be able to be suspended.
He can
The
be
only way another
suspended.
team could
Wait,
get him.
whoa. He can be suspended. How is the suspension counting down till he signs?
Because if he signs, let's say tonight, so what's the Rick? Let me ask you. So what's the difference between them having the money to sign him right now and then the suspension going through, as opposed to already missing the games? Because they will likely be able to get him onto a team, and it also affects his trade value. So,
But where's the penalty though? If his suspension counts down while he's waiting to sign, say 15 games count off, he signs. Now he only has 26 to go. How is that fair to other teams?
I think the rule is the same. I don't think, have we had a precedence for this before?
No, this is what the problem is. But still, in my mind, he cannot count off any games till he is a signed player and ready to play. When they put him in the lineup, ready to put him in the lineup, the games count. Or at least he's signed and he's in camp, whatever you call it, and he's training, he can count off the games. But how before he signed? I don't get it.
I agree with Cam.
I don't get it. You can explain it any way you want. I don't get that.
No, I think, and I agree with Cam, and I kind of thought about it the same way because I know there was
Americans don't know shit about hockey. You ever see that commercial?
he was in trade talks leading like right up to when it got announced he was going to be suspended. So, I think when the Senators and whoever they were kind of negotiating, when they got wind that, oh, hey, he's going to be suspended, do you want to put this on pot? Like, how do you want to go about this? Because again, like Cam said, all he has to do is put pen to paper. He can play. So I think that's why.
But that's a big thing. That's a big difference from him putting pen to paper. Now but he hasn't done that.
Okay, well then let's put this into perspective then. So since there is no precedent, this now became the precedent. So
I think it's
the fact that if he can sign anywhere else and then play his game, now he cannot play, right? That has now affected the trade value of him. So now he has to sit out likely for the rest of the year. Now that's a development factor. He loses on development. So in terms of fairness in the league, I think that's completely fair because you lose a year of development. You lose trade value in him because now if you want to get him off your books, you can't get what you originally want because people are going to say, well, I can't play him this year. I can't really develop him this year, so I'm not going to give you what you want. I think
let me ask you this on that. Wait, let me ask you this, though, on that point. He's suspended for 41 games. They're counting off. That actually makes him more favorable to sign than if you're not counting them off because now whenever you sign them, you got 41 games to wait. Here, well, if you go to the last eligible day for him to sign, you kicked off how many games? So now if Ottawa signs him, then he doesn't have to wait that long till he's it doesn't make sense to me.
I don't think so. You want to know why? Because had they would have wanted to sign him, they wouldn't have signed Tarasenko or other players ahead of him.
Well, I don't know if that's wanted to. They don't have the money now because of the
let's think about this, Rick. Some GMs are stupid, but numbers, it's a numbers game. That's right in front of your face. You have a 22, 23-year-old player who wants $4 million, so you're going to go give $6 million, $5 million to another player as opposed to...
I agree. No, it doesn't. It doesn't make sense. Tarasenko's playing really well, but it's because of the signing. That's why they can't sign Pinto. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I think there's another portion of that. No, I'll get into it, but please finish, Cam.
Yeah, so I think all that plays into it. So I don't think it's more favorable. I think it's a detriment to Ottawa. Because now they can't get more value out of him. Again, you lose a development year, which is huge for a 22, 23-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I get it. Still, to me, it doesn't make sense to count off a suspension when he's not eligible to
like we've been talking about it. I think it's just surely the fact that he's an RFA. If this guy was a regular free agent, I think you could probably look at this completely different, and they might say, okay, when you get signed,
right, 100%.
You're going to be your suspension begins.
No, I get it.
The fact No, I know,
He's
but
got
I
an
think
organization. I get what you're saying. He has an organization that they can't.
that's what it really comes down
I
to.
get that. It's still, to me, till he puts pen to paper. Okay, enough on this one. Let's
But-
move on.
I didn't even.
Well,
but
I just want to add one final thing too.
I want to add one thing too, but go ahead, buddy.
I think, and again, this kind of came out right after the suspension was announced, but I think the reason too why the Senators went out and they signed, Tarasenko and whatnot. From what I know, the investigation into Pinto started over the summer. My guess is the Senators kind of had an inkling that he's probably going to be suspended, so they didn't want to, spend the money on him, knowing that they're, it was basically going to be locked up and they weren't going to get a full, however many games out of him.
Oh, that could be.
So they go towards Tarasenko and say, all right, we'll sign you for a year, whatever it was.
To me, there's the fishy part. You discovered the fishy part. That's a deal that should not have been made, and that's the fishy part. They made a deal with the NHL, and that shouldn't have happened. Because I think you're right. That's why he's not signed, because they knew
that would make sense now, and especially
Isn't
with
that insider trading?
You know what's wild
No?
about this
Okay.
the most is the fact that apparently he was doing these bets through a third party. He had an individual that he was placing the bets through, so his name wasn't directly involved. That makes it really seem kind
which
of
is, I think, why the hammer came down so hard.
yeah, that's if it was just him making bets like on other
Right.
like him being with the boys, putting a $50 bet on the New York Jets beating the Giants this weekend.
Okay.
All right, whatever.
Okay, but let me ask you this. They
that's
sweep
bad.
everything. They sweep every other fucking thing under the carpet. Just sweep that under the carpet.
They've always been about the integrity of the game. But
All right.
Okay, so what happened to Team Canada 2018 then?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
anyway, let's see what's the next
Wait
question.
for that. Never going to see the light of day, that thing. All right, let's move on, though. Unless somebody has anything else to say on it, or we can move on. Moving on. This is about the refs. Why are the refs so inconsistent?
I honestly don't think they know what the rules are even themselves, right? Because I mean, even which game was it, Rick, where they, you and I saw the penalty and said what it was, and then they called it something completely different. It's like,
Oh no!
all right, what are we doing?
They hit on Harris. 2
And
days
then that,
later,
too.
Connor Clifton hit somebody. Now, granted, that guy got injured. Harris didn't, but still the same hit. And that guy got suspended 2 games. The other guy against Harris got a 2-minute penalty. That's
Yeah,
inconsistent.
minimum at that should have been a 5-minute. And you're right. I mean, Harris didn't get hit
He didn't
that
get
hard
hurt,
in the head,
luckily.
but it's still a hit to the head that I
Still a
still
hit to
think
the
that
head.
should be a 5-minute major.
Yeah.
Again, because of what that damage could do. God forbid he hit him harder, right? And then if he's only getting a 2-minute minor for that, then he can go, well, let me speed it up a little bit and see how, how much harder I can hit him. And then that's just a dangerous precedent.
It's not just in Habs games, but if you watch almost any other game, you see a lot of times one team getting penalized for something, the other team not. For almost like the same thing. And it's like, why the inconsistency? I don't have an answer for it. Well, you guys know my answer, but we're not going to bring that up. But I'm curious what you guys think about.
Well, I think going back to that game as well.
Oh, I thought he answered it already.
Going back to that game as well, though, those 2 boarding calls where we then got called for defending ourselves.
Yeah, that's
Like-
another thing. Crazy.
Like, how are you supposed to police? I don't get it.
I think you're right. They
Neither
don't
of
know
those
the rules.
penalties for 5 minutes, and at
What-
least one of them should have been.
Cam, what do you think?
I don't want to beat the dead horse with the refs because was it, and if you don't know the answer to it, you don't have to spend time looking it up or anything like that. But was the referee pairs the same between those games, or were they 2 different pairs? And if you don't know the answer,
No, I don't. I think it was 2 different pairs. And I'm not saying it was the same ref.
so
No,
then
but
then I think that's where you get your variety. And
Should it be like that though? So wildly inconsistent that to have the same call, 2 different guys see it so wildly different.
what I care about is consistency in game. You know what I mean? I want to see if
That's not even happening. That's
if-
not even happening.
But if you want to fix the refs, start with in-game consistency and then worry about the rest of the training in the league, because that's, I think, the beautiful thing about people in general, even though people suck. Sorry, listeners. But it's just the truth. I suck too, so don't take too much offense to it. But it's okay. Montreal sucks more. But you know, I think let's start with that, improve the refs from there. But there's going to be, people see things differently, and I think that's going to be a natural piece to the game. We see that as inconsistency. I see that as human error. I see in-game inconsistency as you just not knowing what the hell you're doing.
And we're seeing that too. So it's
Yeah, absolutely.
what it is. Alex, what do you think?
I'm going to keep this short and sweet. Call it down the middle. I don't care what the hell it is. If you're going to call everything consistently. If you're going to not call anything, don't call anything at all. Like, that's all I care about. I'm not
right. Consistency, right? It's important, but it's so
you're not gonna
wildly
say it.
inconsistent. It's absolutely insane these days.
You're not going to say it. It's the same nonsense with the NHL, just like in the other four major sports. You're not going to see consistency from the NHL. We just got to honestly learn to accept it at this point. It's a pain in the gas for sure.
I understand that it wouldn't be 100% consistency because, like Cam says, we're all different. We're all going to see it a little differently. But that's a little differently, not 180 degrees differently. Like consistently.
All I look for in an officiated game, and like you guys brought up, if you're going to call a slash on my team, call it on their team the same way.
Exactly.
If you're going to trick my guy, call their trip the same way. Yeah. The one thing that drives me crazy about the officiating, I'm going to keep this last part very quick.
Yeah, what grinds your gears, Alex? Tell me.
Abolish the friggin' offside rule when a guy goes offside 25 seconds after the damn goal is scored. Why the hell do we have to look at every freaking microscopic play? Oh, he was offside by a freaking tit hair. Who cares? Let the play go. I had to get that off my chest. I can't.
That's okay. That's a good rant.
You had to get it off your tip there.
Seconds when a guy's offside by a friggin' tit hair and the friggin' league loses their friggin' mind over. Oh, let's look at this for 4 minutes. Was this guy off by a fraction? Who cares? Let the freaking play go. It had nothing to do with it.
Unless it's playoffs. In the playoffs, I can understand them being that minute on it, but I tend to agree with you. If you can see, we're not going to get this
done at all. If it's
don't take so long.
The thing with the offside rule is this: if he was offside within a 10-second span, all right, you're allowed to review it. If it's past that, I don't care. It's a goal. It's whatever the original call is. You don't need to go back from something that happened 30 seconds ago and look back at it. There should be a 10-second window, point blank.
But then, Alex, then you get into the point where players are just going to hold on for those 10 seconds. You know what I mean?
I don't care. I'd rather take that than have a play that's going to be abolished 30 seconds.
I think it's fine. I think it's really obvious. And like I said, refs make mistakes. And there have been some really obvious ones.
I'm fine with mistakes.
Have been missed.
I'm fine with mistakes occasionally happening. I don't want to go back on a play that happened 30 seconds ago that happened by a micrometer. If it's obvious, like you said, sure, fine. If it's by this much, why are we doing this?
So then what's the difference between challenging a clear offsides, but then challenging an offside in the booth review that you're just like, you know what, that is off. It may be off by a hair, but it is off.
But that's the thing. If it's that much that you have to look that in depth about it.
Yeah, but there's no difference. It's offside. It's offside. It's offside.
That's why I say it should that 10-second rule should be.
Take the goal off the board.
Yeah, I think
the hell with that.
Alex, show me that angry to little tit hair. Come on, let me see it.
I think the reason they do it is I think the reason they do it is because it's important. It can mean the difference in a game, and that the ref could have missed it because it's so close. It's and they want to get it right. I think that,
and I feel like
you kind of have to filter them all through the one funnel.
And I feel like if we keep talking about it, Alex might have to shave his nipples to measure that with those 10 hits.
He's
definitely getting riled up there. What's up, Doc?
All right, let's move on. The refs are going to give me an aneurysm.
Okay.
I want to touch on one more thing too. Again, going back to that, it was a Blue Jackets game where Rick, with the two boarding calls and the hit to the head.
Yeah.
So. My thing too is when there's plays like that are only getting penalized with a 2-minute minor, where like if a guy like Arbor Jacki or Newhook didn't know how to fall into the boards, they would have both broken their necks, and that hit to the head, like now it's a player safety issue. Those have to be 5-minute majors. And at that point, it's an intent to injure.
And that has to be more consistent on those kind of plays. I agree. Let's move on, though, because we're running out of time. Who's the first coach to get fired this season? Anybody got any ideas for that?
Who's coaching San Jose again? I don't care if it's his first year.
Okay, do you think he'll get fired?
They're not going to give.
If you want my honest answer, I'm gonna say. Oh, you know what? Who's a
no?
You know, it's for Dave Hackstall. Fire Hackstall. I'm sticking with my agenda. Get that bum out of here. Seattle's sucking right now. Fire Hackstall, baby.
Hey, you don't like Hackstall, right?
I can't stand him.
I'm going to follow up with the Playboy Bunny up top there. Yeah, I definitely think you need to fire Hackstall. That team is a pretty good team, and I think his system is going to run it down to the ground.
Matt, you got any ideas?
I can't remember his name to say. I was just trying to look it up, but if they don't turn it around, I think the head coach of the Oilers. Like if they can't find a way to turn the season around, I think he's got to. I mean, his seat. He's probably on a bit of a hot seat right now, but if they can't turn it around, I think he's probably one of the first names that gets mentioned as a fired coach.
Okay, and it's not an injury problem there, is it? I mean, McDavid was out, but I mean, not long enough to be.
It's a goaltending issue. It's a defense issue, but.
Well, let me ask you. Maybe they should be firing the GM as well, then.
But I don't know how you could fire the GM where you had your team last year they were in the West Final.
Yeah,
right?
they were. Yeah.
And now you're you're almost in panic mode now.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
If they can't turn it around by November, it's like, how do you? Those are two different extremes.
Yeah, no, I get your point.
I don't think you can fire the GM yet. I think you'd have to look into coaching first.
Yeah, Jack Campbell brought the Leafs luck with them, so there you go. There
you go. They deserve it for signing him. I'm going with DJ Smith in Ottawa, even though I know Shabbat out. I don't like the guy, and I thought he should have probably gotten fired before this. So I'm going to say if they can't overcome Tom and Shabbat, he's fired. I'm probably wrong, I realize, but I didn't think of anybody else, and I didn't just want to agree with them because they said it, and so I gave you mine. It's okay. Unless you have something else to say, we're moving on.
Jay Woodcroft, that's his name. Jay Woodcroft.
Oh yeah, okay, I know. I got the face now. I can see the face. Okay, last one. What team will rebound from their good start? In other words, now have a bad go to the bad side, and vice versa. Which team should rebound from their bad start? Who wants to start?
I think Rick just had a senior moment. So did you mean which team is going to regress from their hot start?
Yeah. Well, whoever came up with that question put it the way I wrote it. So blame the guy above you.
Yeah, Matt.
My fault. I told
no,
you.
Above you.
Oh.
That was Alex's question.
Apparently,
I didn't say it that way, but go ahead. Anyway.
That's how I heard it. So blame my ears. Who's answering?
I think I touched base upon it. I think, Carolina had a rough start, but they're turning it around. So I think they're going to be the one to rebound the most from it. So like I said, it's mainly from the goals for, goals against perspective. So I think that was a rough start from them. I think they'll end up being, right where I projected them to be. In terms of collapsing, I'm going to probably say Vancouver. They're going to shit themselves, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Who's next? Let's not all go once.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alex.
All right, I guess I'll go. I think Edmonton will rebound. There's too much talent on that team. Their goaltending's an issue. The defense is man, but McDavid's pretty much back. They're often. They have way too much offensive firepower to keep this bad start. I think they'll be just fine. I think they'll slide right into top 3 spot in that division, probably within the next month or so. If I had to pick the team that I think is going to regress, Vancouver. as good of a start as they've had, there's still so many question marks, especially on the back end. I can't see Vancouver continuing this long term. I'm going to say Vancouver.
Yeah. I'm okay with Carolina. I think, and again, I kind of said it, even during their rough patch, that now they have their guys, all their big guns back from injury. I think they'll be fine. They should be competing, for a top 3 spot in that Metro. In terms of a team that's going to regress, I mean, Vancouver's a good pick. It really only is Vancouver. I think that I can really put my finger on right now. I'm also going to lean Boston a little bit, and I don't mean, and by no means am I saying that they're going to drop out of, they won't drop out of the playoff race or anything like that. But I think as they start playing much better teams on the schedule, I think you might kind of start seeing where their Achilles heel is, which, like Cam's touched on, it's their forwards not playing well defensively, and I think stat wise to show that, I mean they're the other team that's tied with Montreal and goals saved above expected. So I think at some point that might bite them, but I don't think they're going to drop out of the playoff race, but they're not going to keep up.
So then, is that really a regression?
Well, yeah, yes and no, because I don't think you're gonna. I can't see the Bruins right now keeping up this run of form.
I think what Nordy's pretty much saying, they'll drop to like the 2 or 3 seed in the division.
Yeah,
4 seed. Okay.
I'll long story short.
Okay, my turn, or do you want to say something, Cap? You look like you want to say something.
Nah.
All right. My turn. I'm gonna go with, for the team coming back. I think Carolina is a good pick for that, because I don't think that they had a slow start. They're a good team and they're gonna figure it out. Injuries or not, I think they're gonna figure it out. As much as I hate to say that, for the team that's having a good start and gonna regress, for all you Habs fans out there, are going to hate me now for this, but I think Montreal, because I don't think Montreal being in 8th place in the league, that's not sustainable. They're going to regress from that to the bottom 3rd of the league, I think. So just so I don't say the same team, Vancouver. But I think if it's not Montreal, I mean, Vancouver definitely is not going to sustain what they're doing right now. No. I can't see that. It seems impossible. It'll probably happen that they do. But yeah, that's my guesses for that. That is going to bring us to the conclusion of the podcast. I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed this and watching. I hope you enjoyed that. You can find this audio, and we're doing the video podcast, so it's available everywhere, wherever you want to. If you want to re-listen to this and you're in the car, just do that. That'd be great.
Spotify, Amazon, and Google Play.
Yep. I didn't hear what he said.
Spotify, Amazon, and Google Play.
That's right. We're on Spotify, Amazon, and Google Play. Just type in Pucking Around Podcast, and you should find us there. And you can also check out the description of all my videos. It's going to have a link for the podcast. So that's it. That's going to bring us to the end of the 4th week. So we'll be back next week with another audio podcast, and hope you guys will look for that. In the meantime, though, give this one a lot of listens and get our numbers up there. That would be really nice. Give us a follow, though, wherever you listen to us, and we'll see you and talk to you next week. And that's it. So from all of us here at Pucking Around, thanks, everybody. Till next time, stay safe. Peace out. And we'll see you soon.
Let's go, baby.
Have a good one, guys. Go Flyers.
Time for the Pucking Around podcast. Puck around and find out.